Welcome to Hagmann. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. I'm going to take care of some housekeeping here. Apparently, I have to press a few buttons. Hang on a sec. There we go. Yeah, imagine this. Imagine 450,000 children being smuggled. Of course, that's what Biden and Mayorkas have done, and all the left and the political left, the ideological left. That number is just what is the number that were found. 6 young ladies being found in, yes, tunnels, yes, raped multiple times. I'm going to bring Sam Andrews on. We're going to be talking about this and other things, but if you can punch up that video, it's a minute, just a minute 20, roughly. If you haven't seen this, this was, when was this? This was earlier today. And you have to really look at the intent, look at these stats, but also look at the fact, like we said yesterday in the program last night. We can have all the exposure of these crimes that we want, but until the right people, until the leaders of the band, the orchestra, get arrested, I don't see what. All I see is just a bunch of crap. And, I'm to the point now where, like I said before, either you take care of it or we'll take care of it. But it's going to get taken care of. Here's DHS Secretary Mullen. I don't care what you think of it. Look, DHS, come on, man. Watch this, a minute 26. Here it is. No, maybe not. We'll just have a black screen. That'll work. It was a false, yeah. Apparently, it's weird. Look, of course it's weird. The truth, isn't it interesting too about how the truth is being muzzled? And let me remind people again, okay? I don't do letter substitutions to avoid the algorithm or to. I don't do letter substitutions or bleep out words or abbreviate words to avoid the algorithms. I don't do that to allow my channel to be monetized. It's not that important to me. And if it's that important to you, then I suggest you do something else. I don't know. It's just me. Okay, if a woman is violently raped and savagely raped, I'm not gonna soft sell the word. I'm not gonna bleep out the word. I'm gonna say the word. Child pornography. I'm going to say those words. Murder, Islam, transsexual, all of those words that the advertisers get uncomfortable with. Look at all the advertising we have on this channel. Oppressive, isn't it? I refuse to be a program between a bunch of anchor advertisers. Ain't going to happen. You just say it the way it is. So you have to face uncomfortable facts. And the uncomfortable facts is that the very people who are behind the child rapes, the child trafficking, are walking around free. Like I said, here's a message. Either you folks take care of it, Department of Justice, HSI, FBI. Either you take care of it or we will. Watch this. Here it is.
As I have mentioned before, the previous administration, they we have 450,000 kids when we came into office missing that just wasn't checked in on. We have found 147,000 of them. We're still looking for 300,000. And we have the most horrific stories about that. And so when kids and human smuggling is taking place on either border, it's very, very devastating. I mean, we have one group that we broke up that these young ladies are claiming that they were raped 600 to 700 times. And these are teenage girls now. We have one that we just broke up recently that was a ring of people that had kept these kids down in a tunnel. And you couldn't write a horror story how bad this was. Couldn't write a horror story. I mean, stuff that I'll never forget. And so the thing that's more personal to me is the human smuggling. Because it's just not, and majority of it is not just simply coming here to work. And that's something that we have to work very closely on. And our Canadian partners know this too. This isn't anything that's unusual to us, but I think that's probably the one that bothers me the most.
Modern day slavery.
Sam Andrews, freedomtrain.net, freedomtrain.net. Freedom Center USA is with me. Sam, come on board, man. Thanks for joining me. And people know you. I know people in the chat know you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for following us on Rumble. No, we're not on YouTube. I won't go on YouTube. I wouldn't go on YouTube if no, I just wouldn't. Don't do it. It wouldn't be prudent, as Shrub said, George Bush said, I'm sorry. Wouldn't be prudent. Oh, that was the dad, I think. Wasn't it? Wouldn't be prudent. Doesn't matter. Sam Andrews, Freedom Center USA. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Doug. Good to be with you.
It's good to have you. Let's talk. We have a problem in this country. And we have multiple problems in this country. Christianity is under attack. Morals are under attack. Humanity is under attack. We have a problem with we have, where do I start? But we have guns. We got guns. We have ammo. Let's see. It's the last time we had the guns out of the closet. But we have a bunch of people running around. You got Muslims taking over New York City that 25 years ago was the site of one of the worst terrorist attacks on U.S. soil in American history. And believe what you want about that. Look, it was Islamic. There was a huge Islamic component to that. Were there other things involved? Absolutely. Were other countries involved? Absolutely. But here's the thing. Now you have a commie Muslim mayor. Why? Because we didn't do shit, that's why. We didn't do a damn thing over there. We let these scumbags in power. Just like we're allowing these scumbags to traffic the children, rape the women, make the rules, break the rules. Sam, help me out with all this, man. Help me out.
I left the state of Wisconsin this week, and I was there for 2 solid weeks. And apparently, I stopped in some very liberal towns and walked into some Walmarts.
Yeah.
And in one 4-minute trip into a Walmart in a town that I won't name in Wisconsin.
No, name the town. Name the friggin' town, Sam. I'll name it. Let me see if I guess it. Will you tell me? Racine.
Yeah, it's a smaller town than that.
Never mind then. Don't worry about it. It's all friggin' never mind. Just go ahead. I don't care.
Well, I walked into a Walmart, and in literally 30 seconds, I saw 4 transvestites. And I just kind of glanced the other way, walked back to the sporting goods section, looked for what I needed, walked back up to the cash register. And on the way to the cash register, I counted 12 lesbian couples and 3 male gay couples.
No, come on, man.
Now,
where the hell were you? Fire Island or what?
I saw more people with sexual issues in one 4-minute trip in a Walmart in Wisconsin than I have seen in 15 years in Missouri. I couldn't believe it. And the sad truth was, one of the couples had an 8-year-old girl. And this 8-year-old girl had piercings. She had tattoos. She had a demonic headdress depicting satanic things. And it disturbed me on a level that I haven't been disturbed in a long time when I saw that child like that. Now, you talk about Mullen and his comments today. What he meant to say, and I'll paraphrase it, was there were 450,000 kids that we know are missing.
There you go.
Okay. The number's probably closer to 1 million in the last 4 to 5 years, most of it under the Biden administration. And they found 140,000, maybe a little more. And you know where they find them, Doug? They find them in sanctuary cities. And this is not a coincidence. Like the mayor of New York, if you want to know why don't they like ICE? Guess who's finding most of the kids? ICE.
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 Yeah.
These kids that are being abused and raped and tortured. And ICE is finding them. That's why they hate ICE. That's why they're out in the streets protesting and starting fights with ICE. These people are satanic beyond measure. All I can say is paraphrase the words of Christ. These people that are torturing hundreds of thousands of children. Let me just put that number in perspective. I live in a town called Lebanon, Missouri. We might have 25,000 people total in the city limits and in the near surrounding area. 25,000.
I've been there. I see that. Yeah.
If you live in a 25,000 person town and you woke up the next day and 25,000 people were missing, that number is almost incomprehensible. But we're not talking about 25,000 family, adults. We're talking about 450,000 children with names. We know their faces, we know their names, and they're gone. And we found 140,000 of them in the last year and 5 months. And it's unconscionable. And the words of Christ come to my mind. It would be better for them if they were never born. And what are the men in this country doing about it? And I can tell you this. There are some former Tier 1 operators that are working behind the scenes very diligently to recover these children and rescue children and young women. This has been going on so long.
We're working with some, by the way, Sam. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I will say this for the people that don't know. this platform puts a lot of time, effort, and money to those causes through groups that include Shatter Ops and Save Them, as well as Vets for Child Rescue. Just so you know that we're not sitting here and saying, well, it's a shame. I'm going to tell you right now, Sam, and I'm going to shut up and let you continue. We have, when I say we, perhaps that's a wrong thing to say they, primarily they have executed missions where they've saved children and brought children out of extremely dangerous circumstances. And you know what I found, Sam, and I'll just shut up after this. I found that I shouldn't eat candy as I'm talking, pardon me. I found that the law enforcement is less than useful. CPS is downright obstructive, and the government agencies are, for the most part, involved at some level.
Doug, the Biden administration set the whole thing up.
Yeah.
This massive child trafficking scheme. And they funneled them into sanctuary cities, and they used your tax dollars to house them, the rape houses. If the truth comes out, and it will, I believe it will, this is so heinous that I'm not even sure words could describe it. And they used your tax dollars to do it. That's the thing that just boggles my mind, is that they used our tax dollars through organizations like USAID, through organizations in the federal government where money gets diverted to different projects. It's unbelievable the size of the scam and the number of powerful people behind this. And it's unconscionable. And I am stunned that the Trump administration has not arrested some of the powerful people behind this. It brings me to tears. I'm so disappointed I can't even describe my feeling.
I get that. As long as there are children that are out there missing, being trafficked, we're going to continue what we need to do. But it's disheartening. It's a beautiful thing when you can see one person or one child being taken from a bad situation. I mean, it's an unbelievably great success. What about the other 999,999?
Well, what many people don't know about children this age that are raped and sexually abused, even when you rescue them, their chances of committing suicide go up 900%, 9x. The probability of them committing suicide before they get to the age of 30 go up 9x. The damage that is done by a child raped once or twice. And some of these kids are being raped and tortured, raped hundreds of times. And I don't understand how the American people can continue to be aware of these things and keep their cool.
Okay, so Sam, I mean, this is something that I really, I struggle with these topics because we see this. Is it something that if the American people, I mean, it's for one thing, it's one thing for an average American person to hear like 1 million children missing and trafficked. I don't think the comprehension is there. Now, if their neighbor's child goes missing, that's a little different. Where's the disconnect here?
Well, have you ever heard the phrase, one man's death is a tragedy, 1,000 deaths is just a number?
Yeah, yeah. And I get the sentiment behind that, or the understanding behind that. Yeah, I do.
I don't think the human brain can even comprehend the level of horror. This isn't going on in India. It's not going on in Russia. It's not going on in Iran. Well, it is going on in Iran, but this has been this has been going on in the United States of America, in our country, supposedly the land of the free and the home of the brave. Well, I've seen some free people in the last 60 years. I'd like to see some brave people. I'd like to see more of these people that live in the land of the brave.
Yeah.
I mean, because this cannot go on. God will not bless a country that tortures and rapes millions of children.
Or celebrates their deaths through, infanticide, these charnel houses of
Yeah.
it just blows my mind that we have this. Well, I guess it really doesn't. It just upsets me that we have this element of this death culture that we see.
Look at how many Christians took the clot shot. You can say they were coerced.
They made me.
They did it out of ignorance. You can make any excuse you want. But I'm telling you would have to have slept through 7th grade science class to be duped into taking that vaccine. And I know there's some good people out there that took it and they had their reasons. My mom took it.
Yeah,
she took it because she had kidney failure and they wouldn't give her dialysis if she didn't take it. She took it and she died soon after. But, and my mom was a smart woman. She wasn't that smart.
Because I'll admit,
educated would have said no.
I'll admit this to you, okay? Anytime the government says you got to take this, or especially when it comes to your body, okay? This is before. I did all sorts of studying, research, and probative questions, right? And with medical professionals. I'm not talking about, Googling. I'm talking about actually doing some field research, and I realized what the hell was going on. And my wife said, well, maybe I should. Maybe we should get that. And I looked at her. I said, no. And then she said, well, you seem so damn certain about this. What if I went and got it? And she was giving me a hard time. What if I went and got it anyway? And I said, well, one of us would be looking for a place to live. Your choice. And no, neither one of us. No. And, to me, that is the level, Sam, of intensity that we all should be living our lives. Sure, you want to do that, you go ahead, but I'll tell you what, you're going to be doing it on your own.
Well, setting boundaries is something a lot of Americans have had trouble with for a long time. And it's nothing new in that respect. But I agree with you, Doug. I don't think we're hard enough on the people we love and our friends at times. I think you need to set clear boundaries when you understand the truth and you understand what's going on. You need to lay it out to them and be very clear and very concise and very defined and say, here's the fence. This is the line. You cross that and we're done. I mean,
yeah.
We're pushing this stuff on children. How many children were killed by the COVID virus?
I just saw a paper that came out about that, a research study. And doggone if I know where I put it, but I have it. A lot. A whole lot. How many? Do you know the number?
I'll bet you most of the children that were injured or sick or seriously hurt or died in the COVID era were actually damaged by the shot.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought that was a question. Yeah, I thought that was a question. My bad. It was the injection that the shot that so-called vaccine that caused the damage. That was the peer-reviewed report that came out. And if I stated otherwise, I'm sorry. But in terms of the virus,
why hasn't Fauci been convicted and given the death penalty and let his appeal time start? That's what I want to know. But we murder people by the millions.
Yep.
We kidnap, rape, and torture children by the millions. And who is being held accountable? Crickets.
Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you, we can hold people accountable if we want to, because again, I January 6th, hey man, FBI, 24 hours later, they were fanned out all over the country, and sedition hunters, they were on our ass, and yeah, communist bastards.
Well, I always warn people that the leadership, the Hitlers of the world, the Faucis of the world, they could do nothing if it weren't for the order followers. Without the brown shirts, without the SS, what could Hitler have accomplished? Without Hitler's youth. See, you need order followers. You need people that blindly follow corrupt orders to do great damage. Because one person can only do a limited amount of damage. But when you are part of a leadership group or a government or a head of state, you can put a lot of order followers. You can enlist a lot of men with a lot of brute force to do evil. And if your populace isn't moral, if they're not willing to say, that is an immoral and illegal order I will not follow. If they're not willing to do that, the amount of damage that gets done from order followers is almost incalculable. It's generational. And it's the order followers that are as much as fault as the leadership.
Generational is the important aspect of that, because I don't think people really comprehend how big that is, how big that process is, and how impactful that is.
We talked about that a few weeks ago when I brought up my first wife and how every woman up to her great-great-great-grandmother had been raped and sexually abused by their own family members. And then here you are generationally, even if it stops with your generation, you're not able to function in a normal marriage. You're not able to function as a normal mother. You're not able to have healthy relationships with your coworkers. I mean, it truly is generational. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. It just doesn't go away. And this type of sin, it didn't surprise me when I read in Scripture, the sins of the father will be visited on the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. That's a quote from God. And when I was a young boy, I was infuriated by that verse. That's not fair. That's not right. Well, I didn't put enough weight on the last part of that verse, of those who hate me. And those who hate God will have the sins of their ancestors visited upon them. And it will go on generationally. And I've witnessed that with my own eyes at the age I'm at now. I've seen it over and over and over again.
Important distinction, though, that qualifying phrase.
Yes.
Don't think, for example, if you're a Christian man or woman, that you're going to inherit the sins of your grandparents or great grandparents, because it's not the case.
Yeah, the simple answer is, how do you break generational sins in your family? Love God. Do what's right. You literally change the epimarkers in your DNA, in your body, in your physical biology. You change those epimarkers and you break. If you don't know what an epidemiological marker is, I would highly suggest you look it up.
Well, let's talk about that if you don't mind, because DNA is DNA, our DNA is from
Powerful
God.
tool. Yes.
Right.
Designed by God.
Right.
And so the way it works, a simple explanation of an epimarker, an epidemiological marker, it's the way your DNA modifies itself. So you have proteins and peptides that interact with your DNA. And I always use the example of Bobby Bonds, this absolutely gonzo talented line drive hitter for the Chicago Cubs. Back in the 60s, 1960s. He was a great hitter, and he is in the Hall of Fame. And he hit line drive after line drive after line drive. Well, he had a kid named Barry Bonds. You may have heard of him. He's a pretty good hitter as well. He's the guy that shattered Hank Aaron's home run record for the career and is the leading home run hitter in history. And the reason he's the leading home run hitter in history isn't because of the performance-enhancing drugs he took. It's because he inherited epimarkers from his father on hitting a baseball. And the way that it works is, if you repeat a behavior, an action, like hit line drives, thousands and thousands and thousands of line drives, your epimarkers change on your DNA structure. And then when you impregnate a woman, those epimarkers get transferred to your son in large part. And it makes it easier for your son to hit a baseball when he becomes of age because of those epimarkers. And so your behavior actually modifies your biology. That's the key thing to understand. And you pass those changes down to your children. If that behavior occurs before you conceive a child. This is no small thing to understand, but it's real.
Because of your knowledge, I want to kind of ask you. Well, I want to ask you this question, and ladies and gentlemen who are in the chat, listening and watching, you should think about something. Everyone says that the clot shot and the biolabs. I mean, recently the biolabs, right? They came out, and Gabbard, last month said, geez, we're funding all these biolabs everywhere across the world. And the DNA, targeting our DNA, this is kind of like a two-part issue. The one part is the targeting of our DNA. And I would say our blood as well, for other reasons, but and the second part of that is, and Sam, you and I have not asked you about this, but I want you to think about something. You've heard of Dr. Edmund Locard's principle of exchange, where that's where we get touch DNA from, essentially. Locard was like the Sherlock Holmes of his time, scientific Sherlock Holmes, where his principle was, you walk into a room, you leave something, and you take something with you. In other words, again, follow me on this, everyone. You walk into a room, you leave DNA, and you take something, DNA, fibers, whatever, trace, whatever, with you. Now translate that into, you ready for this? Sexual relations. Bet you didn't see that coming, huh?
I was kind of hoping you would go there.
All right. Yeah, we haven't talked about this.
No, we've never talked about this. And so
go ahead.
Many people have this false belief system that their biology, their family history of heart attacks, or their family history of diabetes, or their family history of Parkinson's or of MS, that it's genetic. It's really not. But in the case that you're talking about here, when you exchange a kiss with someone else, or you touch skin, or you breathe the respiration droplets from their exhale, you can take into your body not just DNA, but bacterial flora. You can take in viruses. You can take in protozoa, other types of pathogens, not just DNA. And you can rub up against something and have it absorb into your skin and carry it with you. This is very normal. And I know I'll probably offend somebody, but my cousin and I, my cousin Matt, brilliant engineer, really a neat guy. He used to make fun of my mom and her sisters. She had 3 sisters, Sharon, Jean, and Mickey. My mom's name was Pat. And he used to call them the Keogh sisters because that was their maiden name. So whenever he referred to them as a group, he called them the Keogh sisters. And he said, "Do you wonder why they're all overweight?" I said, "No, I don't wonder that. I see what they eat." Do I wonder why they're all overweight? And he said, "Oh, I think it's genetic. I think it's just part of being a Keogh sister." And I kind of blew off what he said because I'm like, they're always eating carbs and sugars. Of course they're going to be overweight. And they eat too much. So of course they're going to be 150, 200 pounds overweight. And that was my logic at the time. But then I started studying biology. I grew older. You know, we weren't 6th, 7th, 8th grade, junior high age, making wisecracks about people's physical issues. We started to learn science and engineering. And you can even listen to some of Dr. Gundry's speeches on this. But there are certain bacteria that sisters share.
Okay.
And when that bacteria gets into your gut, it makes it very difficult for you to not put fat on. In other words, skinny people have a different subset of bacteria in their gut than people that are massively obese. It's not the same gut flora. And the people are skinny because they have certain bacteria in their gut. And the people that are overweight because they have a proliferation of a completely different flora group of bacteria in their gut, which make it darn near impossible for them to lose weight if they don't fix their gut issues. And I had no idea. I learned that at the age of 50, not the age of 15.
All right.
And so is there a fat gene? No. Is there fat bacteria that will make you fat that can wind up in your gut from hanging around people that are extremely heavy? Absolutely scientific fact. And I know that'll offend somebody.
Well,
That's
okay.
the truth,
Okay.
and I'm sorry.
No. So what you're saying, okay, so I was going to go, and I intend to go one level, floor, whatever, deeper. So hang on for a second. But to what you're saying is, if pretty much like it would be like a flu virus, if there is such a thing. I know some people don't believe in viruses. Don't get me started. I mean, don't ask me how, but okay. But the exhalation transmitting that specific virus through droplets makes the other person sick. That's the concept, right? Is that not the concept that you reference?
Real and possible in certain circumstances.
Okay. All right. Can we stipulate in certain circumstances that does exist?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. All right. So what about this? When you have, and I'm going to go back to sex again. When you have a relationship, we'll say, outside of marriage, I've always wondered why the purity aspect was so important with the Bible and with God. So when you have sex outside of marriage, Here's my contention. I don't know if it can be proven. I don't know. But here's my theory, my hypothesis. You permanently exchange things that will change your DNA through that relationship, through that intercourse, or other, folks.
100% true.
Okay. So you carry that with you.
Fact.
How is that? Did I miss that memo? Did I miss that? Apparently I did, but I want to know. Because think of it this way, folks, not to Sam. I mean, Sam knows. I don't. But okay, so you're out there. You're a horn dog at 18, and you're pumping everything you can find. Well, the exchange of body stuff between the two individuals, in my mind, stays with you. And over time, does something to your DNA. Help me out, Sam. Am I out of my mind?
It's more complicated. It's more robust than that. Because when you have sexual intercourse with a young woman, when you're a young man, you not only exchange bodily fluids and DNA, but you exchange bacteria, you exchange viruses, and just simply the act itself modifies your DNA through epidemiological markers.
That's what you were referencing.
Behavior.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's layered a lot deeper than a lot of people realize. That's what, and see. So there are a lot of people. I'll give you a theory. I'll throw a theory out there. You probably won't agree with, but a lot of people believe, strong Christian people, they believe that God interacts with them every day and influences their life for better or for worse, to bless them or to curse them or to reward them or to punish them on a daily, moment-by-moment basis.
Okay.
Right. I don't believe that.
You don't believe that?
I believe that can happen, but it's rare. What I believe is that God has designed such an incredibly complex, robust system in his laws of physics and his laws of biology that the consequences and rewards are designed in. He doesn't have to actively manage them. He's created a system that in his case will passively manage them. Like if you drink enough, you're going to destroy your liver. It's designed in. Okay? If you eat sugars and you don't exercise and you eat carbs too much, you're going to have insulin resistance and you're going to wind up a type 2 someday. It's all designed in. And so that sort of begs the question, does God answer prayers? And I think the answer is yes. I think there's a reason it says in Scripture you should be praying unceasingly throughout the day. But I think it's absolutely fascinating when you truly understand biology and you understand the things we know about physics, how much intelligent design passively provides rewards and consequences, takes zero active management. And I don't think the average person really considers the depth that God went to when he designed this world, designed our biology, designed in rewards and consequences to certain choices.
Okay. Now, hold that thought. And this is going to seem like a non sequitur, but it really kind of isn't. I think this is related. We opened the program up by talking about the children, the women raped hundreds of times. Well, we just spoke about what you just spoke about, not the prayer part. Okay, I get that. But that does factor in here. the victimization of children or women who are savagely raped, abused, sexually assaulted. Gee, I said it, and I couldn't say sexual assault and be monetized on YouTube. Shame. Okay. Anyway, that almost seems like a punishment to that victim, far beyond the initial physical assault and consequential psychological damage. It seems like almost like a physical curse, Sam, based on what you said about the changing of the epimarkers and such. Is that, how do you square that up?
Well, I think you're asking one of the most important moral questions that can be asked, which is at the root of a lot of atheists that do not believe in God. Is they say, how could God let that happen to innocent children? How could God let these horrible things happen to innocent women, innocent little boys? But here's the thing. God created a system of free will where all of his human children get to choose. And Jesus told us we will be judged according to our deeds, okay, and according to our choices, okay? God never promised us a pain-free life. He gave us free will and watches what we do. And which means if you have free will, you have the ability to abuse someone with less strength, less power, less authority, and get away with it in the short term. But and I try to explain to my atheist friends the wonderful thing about all of the children that have been aborted, all of the children that have been kidnapped and raped and tortured. Look at what happened in Rwanda.
Yeah.
They cut women's breasts off so they couldn't feed their own kids. I mean, the horror stories are unbelievable. But the thing that I believe in, the thing that I have faith in, is that God is powerful enough in the end to make those children whole.
Oh, 100%.
And so I don't worry about those children being made whole. That's above my pay grade, and I believe God has that covered. I worry about us not being Christ-like in the sense that we confront evil like Christ did. And that's the thing that really bothers me, because that's our choice, is to actually not confront evil, or to confront evil and stop it in its tracks. And, that's one of the reasons I was in Ferguson, because they were burning apartments down with single mothers and little babies inside. And this kind of thing, I mean, when you look at what Christ did, he confronted evil in every situation with no fear. It didn't matter if it was demons. It didn't matter if it was people trying to stone a woman for an impropriety. It didn't matter if the money changers were in the temple. He, without fear, confronted evil in every single circumstance we know about. And in only one case could I possibly sense a mustard seed of fear from Christ. And that was in the garden when he was praying to his Father in heaven and said, if there's any other way, could you let this cup pass from me? And he knew what was about to happen. He knew he was about to be tortured and killed. And he asked his Father in heaven, is there any other way? The answer was no, there isn't. And he said in another part of Scripture, he said, I came not to do my own will, but to do the will of my Father.
Whew.
Heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff, and think about that.
It's one thing to go through it, but it's another thing to know ahead of time what you're going to have to go through to fulfill the will of your Father. You talk about courage. Holy smokes.
Which, now this is kind of an outlier, which makes me think of the Shroud of Turin and the blood evidence or not blood evidence, the evidence that of the torture illustrated by the shroud. I guess that's an entirely different topic, but I mean, think about what Jesus endured, was forced to endure, or endured, I should say, not forced to, but what he underwent.
He chose,
yes,
to sacrifice himself,
yes,
to fulfill the will of his Father.
I mean,
see, I know a lot of brave warriors, Doug, but none of them know the time and place that they're going to die.
Right.
You know, I'm out on the racetrack last weekend doing 200 miles an hour on a super bike, and I could have easily pushed the front or turned the throttle a little aggressively and high-sided the rear and been killed. But I don't know if someone's going to take me out. I don't know if I'm going to make a mistake with the brakes and shove the front and crash, or if I'm going to be too aggressive, or if I'm going to miss some antifreeze or some oil sheen on an area that somebody just left on the track. I can tell you this, I came through turn 5. There was a guy parked in the middle of the track, stopped, his feet on the ground, and was turned around looking at the tail section of his bike.
Okay.
And I probably missed him 11, 13 inches, just about a foot, my left shoulder off the tail section of his bike, my knee on the ground at 50 degrees of lean angle.
All right.
And I didn't have a lot of options to change my line, but I kept myself from rolling on the throttle because he was after the apex of the corner. And I was like, thank goodness I didn't roll on the throttle. And I saw him soon enough because it's kind of a blind entry off the back straightaway down into 5. I didn't really have a chance. And when you're doing 200 miles an hour and you hit the brakes, your eyes are looking for that brake mark. Because if you miss that, you're hosed. And then you're looking for your turn in point, and then your eyes go to the apex. And so your head's down and you're using these reference points to carry you around the racetrack safely. And then I hit the apex, and as I looked at the apex, I see something just stuck in the middle of the racetrack. And I'm like, oh my God, he's right on the racing line. And so I picked the bike up about 10 degrees. I didn't roll on the throttle. And I wound up on the rumple strips on the outside of the track about 3 feet off the track. But I got back on, and it wasn't an incident. But
did you have words with him later?
They kicked him out.
Good.
They kicked the guy out. He caused 3 red flags in one weekend. And the third one, they said, you're gone. You're not coming back.
Okay. But how close you come to, and folks, if you know Sam Andrews, you know that in his life, professional life, in his real life, not his sporting life, but his real life. Let's just say that he could be dead at any moment. Okay, I don't know how else to say that.
I could have died 120 times between the age of 23 and 55.
Okay, all right, which
easily 120 times, maybe more.
Again, you got to know. You got to know. If you know, you know. Okay, so my question to you in this case, here you are on this racetrack at your age. Now, when I say that, that's not. I'm not being disparaging at all. But you're going 200 flipping miles an hour. Okay, if I'm doing that, I better have a damn good reason I'm going 200 miles an hour. Like, you know.
Well, the last place you flew, you went a lot faster than that, Doug.
Okay, yeah. But I wasn't 6 inches from the ground, or my knee wasn't scraping on the ground. So here's a question for all of us. We do things all the time. Well, not all the time. We do a lot of things in our life that bring us to that edge. Is that okay, do you think, Sam? That
yes.
Okay, why?
Absolutely, I believe
justify that.
Well, I'll tell you why.
Because I think you have a guardian angel going on strike, saying, "Hey, you know what, man? I'm out of here. This guy's out of control." Go ahead.
No. I believe people have asked me, people that have worked for me, people under my command, people that I've worked for have asked me all the time, why do you have no fear? because I don't. I have none. Okay. And I believe there's a lot braver people than me. Alex Honnold, write that name down. There's a guy that's fearless.
Say it again.
Alex Honnold.
Spell it last.
Honnold.
Okay.
If you've ever watched the movie Free Solo, you'll understand.
All right.
Okay. You can watch the movie Free Solo and you'll get it. He's a free solo climber extraordinaire. And every free solo climber that I ever climbed with is dead. I never climbed with Alex, but Alex is better than us. He's better than every other climber I know. He's still alive. And he's probably 40 years old. He's been doing it for 20 years. And they make movies about this guy. And I tell people he's the greatest athlete, most fearless human being I've ever witnessed. And the reason I say that, you think about the great fighters. Now, I'll ask you a question. Who do you consider the greatest heavyweight boxer in history?
Hell if I know. I'm not, I couldn't tell you. No.
Okay. Well, some people would say Mike Tyson was the fiercest. Some people would say George Foreman was the strongest. Some people would say Muhammad Ali was the most skilled. But the average person would never, ever get in the ring with a professional heavyweight fighter, because those guys would rip your head off with one punch. They're that strong. Their hands are that fast. But here's the thing. There's a lot of heavyweight boxers that get in the ring with Mike Tyson and take their shot. There is nobody in the climbing world that will even climb in the arena with Alex Honnold. Nobody will even attempt to do the things that he does. And Alex has his own personality that keeps him from feeling fear in moments that would destroy other people. But I can tell you why I don't feel fear. Because I read as a very young boy in Scripture a verse that said, "Fear only your Father in heaven, who can destroy both body and soul." And once I understood that and the value of that, I was able to do things consistently, succeed in things that were frightening and difficult and hard. And I have had that feeling since I was a very young boy, that I will fear nothing but my Father in heaven. And I have always lived that way because that's what I believe. And my mom used to tell people this story when I was in a maple tree at the age of 4. She went outside looking for me, and I climbed 30 feet up in this big maple in our front yard. She started yelling my name, and I'm like, "I'm right here, Mom." And she couldn't see me because I'm up in this tree. She said, "You get down from there. You could fall and kill yourself." I said, "Mom, I'm not going to die." I said, "If I fall, God will catch me." And I told her that at the age of 4.
No.
And I actually believed it. I actually believed that.
Well,
and if you've known the situations that I've been in and survived, you would say, did you survive because of the belief, or did God assign you a guardian angel? I can't answer that question. I can just tell you that it defies all odds. There's no way. Anyone going through 7 or 8 incidents like the 120 I've been through would be dead. And all my friends are dead. All the people I climbed with, most of the guys I raced with, as a young man, they're all gone. A lot of the warriors that I fought with are gone. And for some reason, I'm still here. And I rationalize that by saying the reason I'm still here is because maybe God has something else that I need to do.
Well, okay.
And when he doesn't, I'll probably be gone.
Look, I agree with that. But that does not mean, for example, in my view, that anyone should get cocky about that. Okay.
No, definitely not.
All right. No.
Yeah, humility is the operative word when you're on the racetrack, when you're on a cliff, when you're scuba diving. Anytime you're in a high risk activity, there's 2 things that keep you alive, and I've been in a bunch of them. It's objectivity and humility.
Humility is extremely important. I found, look, I'll tell you what. folks, we need to humble ourselves before God Almighty every single day, in my view. Okay, but also you cannot. Again, in my view, you must not tempt fate. Not tempt fate. You must not tempt God, or you must not tempt. You can't be stupid. How's that? For example, I have to show folks. Did you see this? This is a little bit off topic, but I got to show this. Okay, Brazil. Eric the Tech, you have this. Did you see this? Brazil. Bungee jumper.
Oh no.
Did you see this? This woman, 40-year-old, or I'm sorry, 21-year-old girl. Here's the story, the backstory. Reportedly, she decides to go bungee jumping. There's a 26-second video of her being set up for the jump. Check this out. Eric the Tech, go ahead, run this.
Ai, meu Deus do céu!
Yeah, you saw that, right? Okay, you can cut that. So I played that just because, well, for a lot of reasons. I don't know. I think tempting fate, number one, is pretty horrible. Number two, this was a criminal case. 6 people tied to the rope jump operation were arrested, and a couple fled, the authorities and such. But for the audio listeners, you have a couple of people picking up this woman, 21-year-old woman, not tying the bungee cord to her legs or not strapping her up. I don't know what the hell what were they thinking, or what was anyone thinking there? They weren't thinking, but they tossed her off the bridge, basically, without any attachments. Thud. It's pure murder. It's pure evil. But all that said, I'm not sure how that fit in there. I just wanted to show people how I can't. Yeah, Sam, how can you even? I've got nothing on that. But okay, back to the maybe that is just off topic. I don't know. But boy, isn't, even if that rope was tight, isn't that tempting God?
Well, I don't bungee jump, and I'll tell you why. The activities that I've invested time in are things that can help. Technical diving, flying, racing cars and motorcycles. They have tactical applications. Cliff climbing, mountaineering skills, scuba diving. These things all have tactical application to them. So they're skills that you develop that allow you ingress and egress to areas maybe you're not supposed to be. Okay.
Right.
And I don't see the tactical application of bungee jumping, much less any reason other than just being an adrenaline junkie and wanting to do something fun or different.
Right.
But I know why people do it. But base jumping and things like that, those have tactical applications. Those squirrel suits that those guys base jump with were developed by some very smart people I know. And they were used, and I'll tell you what, when you're doing a halo or a hey-ho, high altitude low opening or high altitude high opening jump, the wind is a big factor in how close you can get to the objective. And so with certain suits, you can glide 8, 9 to 1, depending on how heavy your gear loading is.
Okay.
And so, I'm okay with taking risks for military operations, tactical operations, but this is recreation.
There you go.
And risk for what? Entertainment sake?
Right,
I
for
don't
the
know.
adrenaline rush? No.
I have mixed feelings about that.
Okay, so conceptually, to me, okay, I love the depth of topic. So conceptually, yes, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you that purposeful, mission-oriented tasks.
Skills.
Yeah. Okay. But I, I, I guess I could. There's nowhere else to go with that except essentially, I believe that we must be responsible in our actions. We must be sober in our lives. We must not, in my view, spit on the gift, which is our lives that were given to us by Almighty God. And that includes, well, you see where I'm going with all this. I believe in the sanctity of life, and I think to be
careful with it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And, some people are risk takers.
Right.
And some are not. Some, and I actually had a really interesting argument with my mom about 20 years ago, sort of about this thing. She was hammering me about racing motorcycles, and she was terrified I was going to get hurt. And I was like, I did get hurt. I raced for 19 years, crashed 6 times at over 160 miles an hour. I got hurt. She said, but it was terrifying for me as your mother. And
that's true.
She kind of raked me over the coals, and she has the right to do that. She's my mom. Right. But I said to her, Mom, you know that Jaguar you drive around? She said, what does that have to do with this? And I said, because you drive that Jaguar because of the ride. It's so much smoother and cushiony and just luxurious on the road than a Mercedes or a Cadillac. I said, those radial tires that are part of your suspension that make that Jaguar ride so smooth? Where do you think those were developed and designed? They were designed on the racetrack. They were designed by men pushing the limits and designing things to be better and having a continuous improvement mindset. And so, maybe give a little nod to racers once in a while and don't be so critical all the time, because your life has benefited enormously. You've been very comfortable because men have been willing to go out and experiment and push the limits and put their butt on the line and go test stuff. And she kind of looked at me like, shut up.
Something to me, that's a reach. God bless your mom. Okay. I would have kicked your ass if I would. God bless your mom. Because I see what you're saying, and I understand that. And I think all of us at some level understand the sacrifice that a lot of people make for humanity. However, man, that was a weak argument. That was weak, in my view.
It's true. Radial tires came from the racetrack. They didn't come from grandmas driving around their Jaguars.
Well, okay.
It's true, whether you like the argument or not. It's true.
That
that aircraft my mom flew to and from Florida in, those were a lot of men died trying to figure out how to make a 727 work, or a 737, or a 747, or a 767. I mean, and the freedom that we enjoy in this country is protected by men that are risk takers. And I understand only 1% to 2% of the population of men are going to be risk takers, but God, I love those guys. God is my witness. I love those men.
Well, you're one of them. So I understand that. And speaking of risk takers, then let's talk in practical terms, because Sam, you and I realize we have a problem in this country. You were talking about it earlier. You walk into a Walmart in Wisconsin. Okay.
Moral bankruptcy.
Right.
And 200 yards from the Walmart, is a sex toy shop. And
Oh,
another 100 yards down there are 3 different strip clubs. And,
okay.
and there's a neighborhood with kids riding around bicycles in this area. And I just thought, how morally bankrupt can this community be?
So
I get real worried when I drive into a neighborhood and I see pawn shops and strip clubs. That's kind of a strong indicator to me. I'm not in a really nice area of town.
well, I'm going to have to shut down my operation of the pawn shop / strip club. Never mind. What was that? What was that show with the pawn shop? Pawn Stars.
Pawn Stars?
Yeah. Best I can do. No, I'm sorry. Okay. But see, no, I won't go there. So, okay. We have a moral responsibility going back the genesis of, because I'd like to ask why, okay, and how did this happen? How did we have this? We have this because we allowed it. So, Sam, help me out here. Is this not our responsibility? Whether it's the million children that are missing or are not accounted for, the rapes of women, pick an immoral, unjust situation. Is it not your responsibility and my responsibility to go out there and say, okay, we're going to, if you don't fix this, we're going to burn this to the ground. And I mean, literally burn this to the ground. If we cannot work something within the confines, within the guardrails of justice, is this not our responsibility to say no and hell no? To the doctors who are committing murder through abortion, I don't like that word abortion, it's murder. Are we not? Should we not? Or mutilating children, cutting their private parts off. If we cannot work within the system to stop that, is it not our righteous responsibility to stop them in any way, shape, or form necessary? That's an honest question I have.
I believe it is required that we stop it. And I can tell you this, the system that everyone is sitting in their lounge chair or their comfy chair like I'm sitting in, that thinks that the system that stole your money and funded all of this rape, torture, and garbage is going to fix itself. You're kidding yourself. You are lying to yourself. It is not going to fix itself.
I agree.
This and you have always, since I've known you, sort of had the attitude of, I think we're going to have to burn it down. We're going to have to burn this trash heap to the ground and start over. And when I think of the way things have gone in the last 6 years, I don't really have a strong argument against that anymore, because I don't expect the Biden administration and USAID and all of these different federal agencies that funded the housing, the rape houses that these kids were transported to, and basically enabled these evil people to do their thing, not to 10 children, not to 100 children, not to 1,000, not to 10,000, not to 100,000, but probably the better part of 1 million children. And we're somehow expecting the Department of Justice, with all these lawyers still working there, that were working there when these rapists were being protected, and they were being hidden, and the funding for them was being hidden after it was stolen from you and I. I don't expect much from these people. I think we'll probably have to burn it down.
So, okay. I'm 100% in agreement with that. And here is the one example I will use where, in my mind, if everyone, this is something I think everyone can do and maybe should do. But I want to get your take on this, because it's not just the act, it's the concept and what the act represents. And there's a lot of angles to this. Okay, follow me on this, folks. The depth of this. All right, we see video after video after video. Think about Reginald Denny, for example, being pulled out of that truck back in, 92, whenever that was. All right. So we see video after video of people blocking cars and then essentially destroying the cars, and in some cases beating the crap out of the car drivers. So, Sam, this is and folks listening and watching this is my question. When did it become mandatory to stop for individuals intent on doing you harm? No, question mark. In other words, if the first half a dozen videos showed a driver not stopping after somebody's beating on the hood and just plowing right through, the narrative would be a lot different. Look, I know that sounds, I don't know how that sounds, but I'm striving for the conceptual or the ideological driver behind that. Why do we stop? Why stop? I know I'm not going to stop. And folks, you can mark this right now, Wednesday, June 17th. This could be used for my prosecution. I don't have a problem with that because I am not stopping. If somebody is trying to stop me with intent to destroy my vehicle or me, I'm not stopping. So if I'm in a blue state and I get prosecuted, use this as the prosecution can use this. But do you see what I mean about the mental, what would you call that?
Well, mental gymnastics, false belief systems.
So
when was it okay to kill a child? I think that's when the country took a real bad turn, when we decided it was okay to murder an unborn child. Because if you can convince a population that it's moral to murder your own unborn child, what's left morally that you can't compromise at that point? Nothing. There's nothing more innocent than an unborn child. There's nothing more defenseless than an unborn child.
That's a better example. Yes.
There's nothing more heinous than killing something defenseless that's doing no harm to anyone. There's nothing more heinous than that. So once we convinced the majority of this country that it was okay to kill unborn babies, the moral fabric of this country was torn in two.
But one can almost fall into, in my view, you can, and this has been argued ad nauseum, but one can almost fall into the idea, well, this is a clump of cells at 6 weeks, unviable outside of the mother's womb. But look, I know that I don't subscribe to that. I believe that life begins at conception. That's my belief. And it's not my body, my choice. It's an individual life inside that mom.
Well, the DNA inside the mom, that is those cells, is different than the mother. So it's not her body.
100%.
Scientifically, that's a fool's argument.
Correct.
My body, my choice. That's ridiculous.
Right. So you've got, number one, you've got the mother, and I use that in quotation marks. When I say mother, the person, that's not really a mother. That's a moron who wants to kill her child, unborn child, or spiritually bankrupt person. So you got that person. You have the system, the nurse, the doctor, the personnel that work to carry out that act of murder, all responsible for the murder of an unborn child. So there's got to be cooperation. And maybe that's why I use the more simplistic example of just running somebody over that intends to do you harm, as opposed to stopping, or I can conceptually or that's not a deep argument, as deep an argument as infanticide. However, the same concept, I think. So, okay, the depth I think we have to address, and regardless, it all comes from evil. I mean, this is pure evil, right? So we have to confront evil. So why aren't we burning down? And I mean this. Why aren't we burning down abortion charnel houses? Why aren't we breaking the hands of the doctors who are performing abortions?
There you go. That's a better answer. You know, that the way to stop abortion is to get rid of the people that are supporting the logistics of the murder. You start punishing doctors for performing abortions, and people always make the argument, well, then this poor young girl, take a coat hanger to her own body, or this or that, the other. And it really boils down to mental illness and lack of moral discernment of the population, and no system can survive that.
Those are the key words. Yeah, no system can survive that. I believe that, Sam. You're 100%. And here we are.
You think about different types of governments, oligarchies, and communist governments, and republics, and democracies, and democratic republics, and theocracies. You look at all the different types of governments that have been tried throughout history. Not one system has survived an immoral populace. It doesn't matter what the system is. It matters what the morality of the people are. Moral people can live quite well in a theocracy with moral leadership. But immoral people can't live in a democratic republic without murdering their own babies, without cutting their own penis off, without doing the absolute most psychotic, destructive things imaginable. And this is what mental illness and a lack of morality bring us. I mean, God warned us. God warned us in Leviticus 20:13. But we ignored it. And as Christians in America, we ignored it. God was trying to protect his own people. He said, do not let this stuff go on in your society. Stop it, put an end to it. Yet,
but one might argue that, look, the New Testament changed that.
Well, that's the argument, right? And then Christ said, I did not come to abolish the law. I came to fulfill it.
Right.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, these passive Christians say, love everybody. Oh, really? You're going to love Hitler? You're going to love Mussolini? You're going to love Khrushchev? You're going to love Pol Pot? You're going to love these mass murderers? You're going to love Fauci?
Oh, well, what is it? Love the man, hate the sin? Or what was that? It's a stupid saying.
Where did Christ say that? I didn't ever hear him say that.
It's what some of these enlightened Christians say.
Well,
right?
let me tell you something. God's about justice. Unlike our Department of Injustice, God's about actual justice. Okay, Sodom and Gomorrah come to mind?
Yep.
What happened to Goliath? Oh, the first sniper headshot recorded in history. Fan of David, at least on that equation. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that morality was designed in place by God for our own benefit.
Amen.
Because
that's right.
The opposite of that is our destruction. It's not a hard concept. Following God's laws is good for you, good for your family, good for your community, good for your country. Ignoring God's morality is the kiss of death for you, your family, your community, and your country. Figure it out. It's not that hard.
It's good. It's good for following that is good for our country, but it's necessary for our constitutional republic to exist. Otherwise, it doesn't exist.
The first time I felt like our country was really doomed. This was over 30 years ago. I was dating this gal. She owned a hair salon in Chesterfield, Missouri. She was a Methodist. And she took me to this Methodist church. And they had a lesbian preacher. And I sat there trying to be polite to my new girlfriend, thinking, I can't flipping believe I am sitting in a building full of self-proclaimed Christ followers listening to a lesbian give a liberal satanic message to the people in this church. What the hell is going on here? I mean, I literally had to bite my lip for 45 minutes.
Why did you stay?
Because I promised her that I would go to one service and listen to her preacher and then make a judgment of whether or not I wanted to attend that church.
Okay.
So I did what I promised. And when we went out to lunch after church, I said, I will never darken the door of that building ever again.
Amen to that. That's right.
But I kept my promise to her. I said I'd give it an honest evaluation. I stuck it out. And what a nightmare. I mean, I went home that day thinking, we're doomed. If Christians are calling lesbian preachers holy and worth listening to and being allowed to lead groups of Christians, we're in big trouble.
Okay, look what is happening all across the U.S. and Minnesota, especially in Minnesota. You have changes being made. For example, just one example, and then, but this represents to me. It could be used as an example for many things. Okay, the Rochester, Minnesota public school system is now. What they've done is they've changed Christmas vacation, that is, to winter vacation, Easter vacation to spring vacation, but yet now they're instituting Islamic holidays by name. Okay, now think about that. Okay, and again, look, what we're talking about here, folks, is not
this
for
is Minnesota,
everyone.
not Detroit, right?
Exactly, but isn't it happening all over the West? Not just the U.S., but all over the West. So this is happening. So
It's happening in Wildwood, Missouri. I drove past my old house coming home from the racetrack. The Baptist church that was a quarter of a mile south of my home in Wildwood, it's now a Muslim house of worship.
Yeah.
I was like, and there were 500 cars in that parking lot.
So what is the problem? And I would pose this to especially the very intelligent, smarter than anyone else people in the chat. So is the problem the Muslim, the fact that it's now a Muslim Islamic center or Islamic center? Or is the problem those who are attending it? Or is there some other aspect that we're not really seeing that's the real problem here? Is it the supply or the demand, I guess, is an easier way to say it. Just asking.
Well, my answer to that is there are differing worldviews. And so if you're a disciple of Christ and you believe in the Judeo-Christian principles, the Muslim worldview is not acceptable. But I'll be honest with you, there are things that the Muslims get right that most American Christians don't.
Well,
there are things they're more conservative in than we are.
You can argue that about just about every, I mean, yes, but I'm not sure that's really is that a valid point in the larger argument here? Kind of like a broken clock is correct, twice a day, right? I mean, look, I get that, except if it's digital, then never mind. But is that a valid argument, though?
Well, I'm arguing a different point, and that is that man-made religions of any type are corrupt.
True.
And if you can't differentiate between denominational lies, I don't care what church you're from. Your preacher, if he graduated from a seminary, is spitting lies. Okay, there's about a 99.9% chance he's not spitting truth. He's spitting lies. Okay, and that's if it's a Christian church leader. And so, I mean, how long ago did the Catholic start supporting abortion, saying that was okay?
I'm not sure when, but
I mean, their current pope is a disgrace from a perspective of God, Christ, and life in general.
but didn't that happen in stages too?
Sure.
Of course, birth control now is okay. We can accept birth control. And forgive me if this is incorrect. It's been a long time since I attended a Jesuit seminary. Yes. Oh, the horror.
I went to a Jesuit college, Doug, St. Louis University.
Yeah.
And half the priests were gay. Openly.
Roger that. Yeah.
Okay. That was years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, back in the early 70s, I went to a seminary and what, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, names in the paper. Oh my gosh. All these, I mean, people I knew.
And what was the Catholic Church doing decades ago? 4 decades, 5 decades ago? They were protecting priests that were raping children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were just shipping them off to another parish and covering everything up. And then there was a big blow up, and so, this has been going on a long time. The lack of morality in this country has been going on for a long, long time.
And yes, and by the way, it doesn't happen. It's not only the Catholic priests and bishops. It's in LDS. It's in various other sects.
Every man-made religion out there.
Right. So yes, yeah. So
I mean, how many youth ministers in Protestant churches have been caught with underage girls? I mean, it's a countless number. It's in the thousands.
Right.
Just like I think over in the last 10 years, over 12,000 police officers have been convicted of felony rape. I mean,
that's true.
People just don't understand that this immorality in our country is everywhere.
And Sam, that is what, again, and to the listeners and viewers, this is what this is what's been on my heart, because we can talk about a lot of things, the headlines, but at the core of all of this, if we are to really fix this or address this with the necessary intellect and the necessary, with all things that are necessary to really repair something, we have to address the very core, the root causes of this, and we have to identify them and then strategize or plan on how to number one, not participate either directly or indirectly. We're not going to be able to coexist, so we must destroy the immorality that's taking place, I think.
Well, let me do this. Let me give you a teleological view from my perspective.
All right.
Okay, God creates man, spins our favorite rock around our favorite star, creates a place for us to live. Pretty cool. Okay, and he says, "Walk with me, talk with me. Let's have a relationship. I want to have a relationship with my creation." God's purpose. And we decide to violate his rules and sin. The fall of man takes place. And then you have the Noahic covenant, the Abrahamic covenant, you have the Davidic covenant, you have all of these covenants where God attempts to restore a relationship with his creation because God cannot abide with sin. And then the atonement process, which is the final covenant. It's the final solution for the sin problem of God's creation on earth. Okay, so this viewpoint puts us in a very unique place because Christ came, he sacrificed, he atoned, he purchased us. Scripture calls him a propitiation. And that payment was for us. He purchased us from God the Father for the purpose of fixing our sin problem, so that a relationship with our Father in heaven could be restored. That's the bottom line. If you believe the Judeo-Christian story, you take a teleological view, you're going to see these one failed covenant after another. It wasn't God failing us, it was us failing God. And then the final solution, which God apparently revealed to David before he died, was his son being the sacrificial lamb and purchasing us from the Father. And you can see evidence of that in 1 Corinthians 3:23. You belong to Christ and Christ belongs to God. And so Christ had a purpose, not just to sacrifice, not just to make the payment, but to fix sin. And the New Testament talks about placing sin and death under his feet. And that's a Jewish, I don't know what you want to call it, a Jewish axiom. To place something under your feet is to defeat it. Like when you slay your enemy, you step on him, and he's under your foot, and you've conquered.
Correct.
And so Christ's job was to fix the sin problem. And it was done through both the atonement and through education. And he's supposed to return to earth. A lot of people think they're going to fly away to heaven. They're going to be raptured to heaven. I don't believe that because the rapture is not in Scripture. But the fact is that if you read the last book, you're going to figure out that God's creation on earth is going to stay on earth. We were designed to be here. Just because men sin doesn't mean God's plan gets thrown away. Christ fixed the sin problem. The New Jerusalem is built on earth, and we're to dwell with our Heavenly Father in the new temple on earth. We're not flying away to heaven. And this is radical stuff for a lot of indoctrinated Christians who don't read their Bible. But I suggest you read the last book.
But not in the same. Okay, so, yeah, now this is getting a little bit, wow, theologically in the weeds here.
Oh, it's radical to a lot of your listeners, but I tell you, read Revelation, you'll understand what I'm saying. But my point is this.
Okay.
My point is this. Christ's purpose was to restore our relationship with our Father. Okay, in heaven.
Read.
Okay, well, and that's the part you really need to understand, and that places us in a very unique spot because we live, you and I, Doug, we live after the first coming of Christ, but we also live before the second coming of Christ, which puts us in this spot of after the first coming and before the second coming. So we're sort of in this now and not yet scenario, which gives us a huge responsibility to confront evil on earth and help bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. And if you don't believe what I just said, say the Lord's Prayer to yourself. Our yes. Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Where? On earth as it is in heaven. Okay, and when you really read the Bible carefully, you realize that Christ's process is to establish God's kingdom on earth. It's not to fly away to heaven. The modern churches are teaching escapism. Escapism defeats responsibility and defeats accountability. What are we lacking in this country? We just talked about it. Accountability and responsibility. We're not holding anyone accountable. They're raping children and murdering children, and we're not holding a single one of them accountable. Accountability is kind of key here. And so we have a moral obligation to confront evil and help establish the kingdom of heaven before the second coming of Christ. It is our duty as followers of Christ, whatever religion you want to believe in.
Okay, then
That's my take.
Okay, I agree. So, how do we execute? Okay, let me be careful in this question to you. How must we? How can we? How must we? How should we? Take care of business. We've got to put a stop to this.
The murder and rape of our children.
Oh, that's yeah. We'll start there. But how must or how should we do that to live to continue to do that as opposed to one and done? All right, because
you don't want to be the sacrificial lamb.
Well, it's not even that. You want to. If God gave you life, you're here to do a job, and you want to do that job well. I think it would be pretty stupid if it was a one and done situation.
Yeah, it's the Patton philosophy. It's not your job to die for your country. It's your job to make the other SOB die for his cause, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we should be defeating evil and winning and living.
So how do we do that in today's world that we can make a difference? Because, again, you see all these well, I don't even know, these cretins that are walking around that are the product of this brainwashing. You've got the brainwashers, you've got the brainwashees, indoctrinated, which one can argue they're victims, and then they become groomers, and this whole, we've got a boatload of problems. So how do we begin to fix this, and at the same time create that, or
in the Gospel of John, Christ said what? The truth will set you free. So you sure better be standing up for the truth. You sure better be vocal about it, right? And you sure better be confronting evil. Because Christ also said to be a disciple of mine, you must remain in my words or my teachings, depending on which translation you read in English. But it starts with education with the truth. And what have we done for the last 20 years? We have let people lie publicly. We've let college kids claim to be animals, furries.
Right.
Demand litter boxes in the classroom so they don't have to go to the bathroom and pee. They could pee in front of everybody in a litter box and draw attention to themselves. We've allowed this kind of mental illness. There's no truth in any of that. That's just a joke. I mean, if we don't start standing up for the truth, if we don't start reading our Bible, particularly the words in red, and understanding the truth, we have no chance. But if you're going to stand up, the first thing you need to know is, what are you standing up for?
Thank you.
You got to have the truth. You got to start with the truth. You got to know what you stand for. And if you're a Christian that believes in three gods and one God in three, and you violate the concept of Father, Son, and the number three and the number one, there's no helping you, because you got to know there's one God in this universe, and he has a son named Christ who paid for you, paid for your eternal life. And you better know the difference between that Father in heaven and that guy who made the payment, the propitiation. And you start with that truth. And then start with a second truth, that murdering children is wrong. See, there's some simple truths. And guess what? Being gay is wrong. It's an abomination to our Creator. Okay.
Agreed.
How about we speak that in public again?
Agreed. Yeah.
If you want to cut that thing off and pretend you're the other sex, you need to go away in a padded room. You're not well. How about we start acknowledging the truth that sexual dysphoria is a mental illness? It is not acceptable. It is not normal. It is not something worthy of praise. See, but all we've done in the last 20 years is pacify and encourage the psychos in our society.
We've accommodated them.
Oh, accommodate. We've rewarded them.
That's a better word, yes.
Do you know what makes me so angry? You know, this whole peptide thing that I got involved with
right
almost a year ago, it makes me so angry. I have client after client, female clients telling me, my doctor won't give me hormones. They won't prescribe me any hormones. Do you know that if you go to your doctor and you tell them you want to transition, they'll give you testosterone like that. They'll give you estrogen. If your husband goes in and says, I want to transition to a woman, you get estradiol like that. And your insurance pays for it.
That's true. No, it doesn't make sense.
That make sense. We can't have healthy women postmenopausal with good balanced hormones, but we can have psychos that want to cut their private parts out, and you and I have to pay for their hormones. How about we start with the truth?
But, okay, how do we actually fix this or change this?
It's changing right now, Doug. It's changing. So people are migrating away from these big pharma doctor drug reps that masquerade as medical professionals, and they're going to functional health doctors and peptide clinics and wellness clinics that are using modern technology to help people. It's already started.
You've seen the pushback.
Yes.
Okay,
so it's not working.
Well, because of people like you, okay, and the folks, I remember our conversation about bacteriostatic water, for example, in the peptide industry.
The Pfizer tried to buy it all up and get it off Amazon, and so we bought tens of thousands of dollars of it, and now we're selling bacteriostatic water for less money than you could buy it off Amazon,
which is absolutely amazing.
Their move.
But they've launched asymmetrical warfare against you and I, folks, but against the industry, the technology that helps us, that Sam Andrews is involved with and has done miraculous things for people with. But again, here we are. We find ourselves always playing defense because now, although you did a great thing, where and however, now I've seen this argument. Well, really, the bacteriostatic water, it wasn't really what you think it is. It was the result of I can't remember the alternate explanation. It was much simpler and much easier to accept, shall we say? But that's not what happened. So. They're fighting asymmetrically against us, against you, against me, against all of us with our health. And like you said about the hormones, make it make sense. We can't make it make sense. So how then do we make a difference? How can...
So do you remember the movies and the book, Atlas Shrugged?
Yeah.
Ayn Rand stuff?
Yeah.
What happened in the book? We're watching it play out right now. People are forsaking the corrupt system, and behind a curtain, they're creating systems that work. It's happening all over. It's kind of exciting, actually. I think it's really cool.
I think it is as well. But then it's
not happening fast enough.
That's my problem.
We could accelerate it. But it's just, so many people are so lost and they're so ignorant. And I'm going to tell you a very personal story. One of my closest friends, he called me 4 days ago and said his wife was diagnosed with breast cancer and bone cancer. And it's in one lung and it's moving to the other lung. And God bless this woman. She's an absolute angel. And we stopped by their house up in St. Charles County on the way home from the racetrack. And we left them with a bunch of peptides and taught them how to use them, and spent 5 hours, going over everything that she needed. And it was tough. It was a tough afternoon for me.
I bet.
But there's hope. Okay. And there's some peptides that are really good at battling cancer, and they really help. And so I have great hope for her. And it was one of those things where, he says to me, I don't know if I can ever pay you. I don't have money for this stuff. And I said, well, you don't have money for chemo and radiation either. So
that's true.
Let's just get through this. And I said, John, when I started the Freedom Center, you gave me the tables from your restaurant for free. I have educated over 14,000 people, students sitting at those tables. The Freedom Center has made tens of thousands of dollars conducting those classes. And when I had no money, no spare cash, you gave me those tables for free. I said, you don't owe me a damn thing for these peptides. I owe you.
Wow.
Okay, so you just do what you need to do for your wife. And maybe when we're elk hunting one fall, we can play a little poker and decide who owes who. I said, but right now, it doesn't matter. It's not important. What's important is she does everything she can do to turn this situation around. And he literally started crying. But it's just one of these things where, when you get a little confused, you wonder, what do we do? How do we fix this? Where do we start? You know what? There was a great football coach, and he used to say to his players, because he knew football players had morality issues, and he used to say, if you play for me, you have to follow one rule, and that's do the next right thing. And so,
interesting. Do the next right thing. Okay.
If you're confused about how to handle a situation, unconfuse yourself and do the next right thing. And then when you're done with that, do the next right thing. The same rule applies. And it just made it so simple, right? Because if you don't know what to do, life's going to throw a lot of stuff at you. But you know what? You smile, you're a child of God, you're a disciple of Christ. You just go, I don't have to sweat this. I'm just going to do the next right thing. I'm going to handle what's in front of me right now and do the next right thing. And whatever comes tomorrow, God will give me the wisdom to handle, and I'm going to do the next right thing tomorrow. And you just keep going.
Thinking about your friend in the restaurant or the tables, I think about situations like that, because I think all of us have been touched in some way or form in our lives, very similar to that, where we have been given something by someone that blessed us. And it's up to us to bless them back or bless others with. It's our responsibility to use that blessing properly. And
Amen to that.
Which to me, look, if we all did the right thing or the next right thing, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But we are.
Well, we're a minority, Doug. That we're not the moral majority or the silent majority. We're the moral minority. And that's okay. Remember, God said to one of his children, if you can find me 10 good men, I'll spare your city, spare your town, right? There's 10 good men in this country. I'm not worried. I know a lot more than 10 good men in this country.
What, real quick though, what makes a good man?
Someone who does the next right thing and gives God the credit.
Does a good man allow injustice?
Not in my eyes. Did David allow Goliath to slaughter his people?
No.
No, he was a boy with a sling and a couple of smooth rocks, and he took care of business. If you have the will, you will find the way to do the next right thing.
Heavy stuff. But very important stuff. That is the man, Sam Andrews. And I'll tell you what, this conversation, we could take this in numerous other directions and talk for hours, if not days.
God will give you what you need. Sometimes not a second too soon. Sometimes it's just right on time. But if you love God, he will give you what you need when you need it.
And that's the other thing too that I've been pondering. The entire the path forward, I believe, if we pray properly, when I say pray properly, it's kind of like if you ask the right questions to someone, you get the proper answers. That's what I mean, for example. But I think that if we allow God to guide our steps, everyone listening to this and watching this, I think that we all have an opportunity to make changes. But there's a saying, an emergency on your part does not constitute a responsibility on my part. Or does not.
Plan on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on my part.
What he said. Yeah.
Well, I can give you an example of God giving you what you need. When Ferguson was going down, I had a shop in Eureka, Missouri. And I was in this small mall. They had a hardware store to my south, bordering my south wall. I had a jewelry store to my north, bordering my north wall. Next past him was a bank, and then there was a drugstore pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same spot, you could get drugs, money, guns, and hardware. Okay. All in the same little strip mall in Eureka, Missouri.
Convenient.
Yeah, we used to talk about this is the only place to shop, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was just kind of a local joke. And when Ferguson was going down, we drove to Ferguson and boarded up a lot of these shops where the windows had been broken and destroyed and looters had gone in. And we took 10 trucks stacked with plywood and screws and screw guns. And we went up there to help the people in Ferguson. We boarded up all their windows in the afternoon, from 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. And then we drove back to Eureka. We were back there about 2:30, 2:45. And all the men that had been up all night defending these shops were exhausted. They hadn't slept because they defended their positions all night. And then they went and boarded up to protect some of these places that had been attacked where we weren't there to defend. But we put them in a more defendable position for the next night. And I was really troubled because I was the one leading this group. And I realized driving back from Ferguson that afternoon, I had no answer to the arson. And I was really frustrated. And I was like, what am I going to do? While everybody else is sleeping, I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs going, you better come up with something. God, I'm going to need some help on this one. Give me what I need. And God told me, literally slapped me upside the head and goes, you're 60 feet from a hardware store. Go over there and buy fuel fire extinguishers and buy 30 buckets. And when you get to Ferguson this afternoon, late this afternoon, this evening, fill those buckets with water, get them up on the rooftops, and get a fuel fire extinguisher on every single corner of every building. And that's what I did. I went over there and I bought about $3,000 worth of buckets and fire extinguishers. And we went there that night and they were throwing flares onto these flat tar roofs in Ferguson. on these second and third story roofs. They were throwing them up there, 3 or 4 of them, to catch the tar on fire. And that's how they did $70 million worth of arson damage in one night. And so I told my men, you're not just taking your rifles with you, you're taking a fire extinguisher that'll put out fuel and oil fires, and you're taking buckets of water. Every man's got to have 2 buckets of water, station got to fuel fires. And that night we got attacked with all kinds of flares, and we grabbed a flare and threw it in a bucket of water, took the other bucket and poured half a bucket on the spot that was burning on the tar when we pulled the flare off of it. And then we kept the fire extinguisher there in case something really big lit up. And it worked. By taking the high ground, buckets of water and fire extinguishers, and 100 men. And what did the federal government do? They brought in 2,000 men and defended nothing. Took the low ground and defended nothing, and
that's
let
my problem.
$70 million worth of arson damage occur.
Right. See, why not spend that $3,000, take half for the fire extinguishers and buckets, the other half for ammo, and I guarantee you, you wouldn't have that return problem of flares or incendiary devices being thrown. Okay, now, just my question, because the flare that you put out on the roof was tossed by someone on the ground. That person is going to go down the road, pick up another flare, toss it on the building that's not protected. Why wasn't that threat exterminated on the ground?
I'll tell you why. Because we believed that if we shot and killed those people early in the process, instead of dealing with 3,500 protesters, we'd be dealing with 300,000. And so we chose to use less lethal methods to not escalate the situation. And to this day, I believe it was the right choice because none of our buildings suffered any damage at all.
And therein, folks, lies a very good, very good point. One that I believe restraint should be used when necessary, tactically and operationally speaking, that you've got plans that you execute properly. And to your point earlier, God does provide you with He guides your steps, and He guided your steps then.
He gives you what you need in the moment.
Yeah.
He really does.
Folks, look, we have a big problem in this country, multiple problems that really are behind the headlines, and that's what we're addressing. I like to think that's what we're addressing, as opposed to the emotional hype and lack of real. I mean, what you're listening to is not rage bait. In my view, it's more of an intellectual, theological course of conduct, education, or discussion, which I think needs to be had on a national level. And that's just me. Sam, you are the man. I'll tell you what. Training Center, you have classes. This, in closing here, you want to mention your classes as well as perhaps your service for the peptide technology. What do you have going first? Or
well, I mean, we're running classes, long range stout. We've got 1,000-yard range. We run handgun and AR-15 classes. We run medic classes. We run preparatory classes. And if we had a big demand for it, we would probably run a peptide technology class.
Interesting.
We could educate people on how to use peptides properly and what peptides can and cannot do. Peptides are really good at certain things when it comes to healing, and there's other things they're not so good at, and you need to know the difference.
Very well stated.
But if you want to hire our company, it works like this. You give me a call. You say, I want to hire you guys to guide us through this process. And we tell you what blood work you need. And then we take your health history. And then we recommend a list of tools, both supplements and peptides. And we get you what you need.
Okay.
And when you get those tools all assembled on your kitchen table, You give me a call. I'm $300 an hour, and we walk you through every step of everything you have to do. So we make it easy for you. And that's the difference. We give you good information, and we make the technology simple and easy to use. And I had a client once say, "You mean I'm taking 9 injections in one day?" And I said, in your case, yes. And you're doing 3 in the morning, 3 at lunch, and 3 after dinner. But you only do 1 at a time. It's pretty easy. It's not hard. You can do it. You know,
Believe me, it can be done.
it can be done. And you know what? What's your alternative? You're going to continue to suffer in pain, or do you want to fix problems? And see, that's the real.
Exactly.
That's when you find out what they're made of. You know, some people say, "I hate shots," and I'm like, "Well, cowgirl up and deal with it, because you're going to feel a lot better in 12 weeks."
And frankly,
It's worth it.
the insulin needles are almost painless. I mean,
Yeah, they're so sharp now that you don't hardly feel them.
right. But the fact, okay, so people need to understand too, this is not for the rest of your life, kind of like, you know, modern medicine. This is, what would you,
Well, let's say this: if you've got massive inflammation, joint problems, things that need to be healed, a broken bone, injuries, we can get those to heal faster.
Right.
10 to 13 weeks, you're done. If you're trying to heal the eyes, you've got issues with macular degeneration, you're probably, instead of being 3 months, you're probably closer to 6 months. If you're fighting insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, things like Parkinson's or MS, you're probably in a 6 month to 1 year battle. But then you're done. You're good to go. Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss, brain fog, all that stuff can be fixed in less than 6 months.
exactly. And there are plenty of people out there on social media who will tell you differently. Based on everything I've seen, Sam's knowledge and research, as well as other medical doctors, you listen to Sam. He's got the information.
Well, I'm going to
Now,
tell you the
go
truth,
ahead.
whether you want to hear it or not. You know,
Yeah.
if you've got a fractured tibia that isn't displaced, I'm going to tell you we're going to get you full bone growth in less than 2 weeks, because it's doable, and I'm going to tell you how to do it, because we've done it. Okay, but if you've got Parkinson's or MS, or you're a serious type 2 diabetic with an A1C over 6.5, 7, I'm going to tell you, quite frankly, you're in a 12-month to 18-month battle, and you're going to have to eat disciplined. You're going to have to exercise in a disciplined way, and you're going to have to use peptides with command sergeant major precision. You're going to have to execute the plan.
That's right.
But you can cure yourself of type 2. I did it for myself.
It can be done. And you know what?
Be done.
But again, you can't be stuffing your mug with high fructose corn syrup as a Slurpee, right? Or whatever.
There are
those.
so we're almost to 400 clients,
Right.
and we've had tremendous success with about 397 of them. Okay, and there's 3 clients, less than 1%, that have found a way to sabotage their own success. 2 of them drink alcohol, and another one eats like a moron. So,
Well,
and you know who you are. You folks know who you are. So, and I told you the same thing to your face. So don't criticize me for throwing you under the bus here. But other people can learn from your mistakes. But you can sabotage yourself and make a lot of expensive urine if you try hard enough.
and that goes. You know what? Isn't that goes for everything, folks?
It's human nature.
Yeah, it really is.
If you have a food addiction, actually peptides can fix that.
That's true. Without the Ozempic crap.
The alcoholic thing, it's a little tougher, but not impossible. But it takes a little willpower.
It does. And folks, he also makes very precise or precision weapons platforms as well. So if you're in the market for a high-end weapon, it's Sam Andrews, as well as training classes at the Freedom Center. That's still taking place, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there you go.
So if you want training, medic training, handgun training, rifle training, long-range rifle training, or you want to heal your body with peptides, give me a call, 417-718-2597. First phone call is free. After that, I'm $300 an hour. So
Well worth
respect
it.
my time, respect my wife's time, and we can do some really cool things for you.
Wow. Sam, thank you for indulging me in the the intellectual depth, I think, that we had today. And I really appreciate that because, again, while others are talking about the symptoms, I think that we have to address the deeper issues. And I think we did that tonight, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think if people take away, just a few things from this show, it's kind of a heavy topic, but do the next right thing, confront evil, and fear only your Father in heaven. I think if you could take those three things away from this show, your life will change.
Amen to that. Sam Andrews, you're the man. FreedomTrain.net, FreedomTrain.net, Freedom Center USA. Sam Andrews, God bless you, my friend, and we'll talk with you later. Appreciate all you do. Good night, everyone.